Well, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are watching from. I know I've got friends all over the world, and welcome to our 2022 7-Day Sobriety Challenge. We did this again last year, and Rob was one of my guests last year, and so excited to have him back this year. And now he has got 2 books out. I mean, for somebody to write 1 book in a year is amazing, but Rob has written 2 books, so that's focus and concentration. So welcome, Rob. I'm so glad to have you here today. So tell us, what have you been doing this last year? Catch us up on things.
Oh my goodness. It has been a lot of fun. One, I've maintained sobriety, so that's a good thing. So
Yay.
yep, 21 years off the sauce and drugs. And it's something I never ever even think about. Even as crazy as life like even was this year, last year during COVID, never once thought, hey, you know what? I think drinking something would be a good thing to do, because my wife's a normie. She can have a glass of wine or a Guinness. And I remember even looking in the fridge, I don't know, however long ago it was, and there was some Guinness in there. And it was like, oh, that was it. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, there's a Guinness. I mean, first of all, what's it doing in the fridge? I drink them warm. But anyway, yeah, it's been a great year of really diving in with my business coach and getting a couple books out there and working on my speaking platform and just out creating and impacting lives. So it's good stuff.
It's amazing. I love the title of your first book, Int ER. Venture, you got a copy there? This is awesome.
Yeah.
Look at that. Int Vention. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have watched that show Intervention, but this is when somebody, well, Rob, you tell them what an intervention is and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. Well, here's a fun thing. So that intervention part, that was something I came up with. I don't know, even I think it was 3 years ago or something, just messing around on my computer. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I even had one that says like pre-intervention, and it was so I didn't know what I was doing like 3 years ago when I just drew it up. And then now coming up with this my recent book, it was the original title was going to be The Art of Intervention book. And it was like, what does that really mean? And then again, being part of great, entrepreneur groups and coaching groups and stuff, it's like, hey, get it out there. It's about addiction intervention. And here's why a title or having a book is really important. I just want to tell that real quick. We'll get into all the sobriety stuff, but not too long ago, there was a wife who was kind of looking stuff up on Amazon, and she was looking up addiction intervention, and my book popped up right away and said, wow, this guy does addiction interventions. That's what I need for my husband. Right. And then she goes in and she downloads the Kindle version, which there's a link to schedule a free call with me, schedules a free call in the morning, hires me to do an intervention for her husband in the afternoon. And I was off and running. Right. And that was all because I had a book out there. Wow. And she probably wouldn't have found me. She would have found some other interventionist, which is fine. Right. To help her and her husband. But it was interesting because it wasn't all about substances. It was about intimacy and sex and porn addictions. And so addiction is addiction, but they have different nuances. So that's kind of what I do. It's when people ask me, what do? I ask them the question. So I ask your audience the question and then figure out what I do. But the question is, do you have someone in your life, maybe a colleague, family member, yourself, that's struggling with addiction?
Yeah.
Linda, how many people do you think say yes to that?
Yeah, put that in the chat. How many people do? There are tons of people that have people in their lives. I think we all do, Rob.
Yeah, and they do. And so you hear the story from the individual every now and then, and then say, that's what I do. I help someone like your uncle or your coworker. I help them break the cycle of addiction and never have to go back. And I'm a conduit. Like I look at it as God really does the work. Yeah. I'm just the guy that's talking to people, giving them tools. And so I help people in a lot of ways through writing books, doing interventions, coaching, speaking at men's retreats and conferences. And so different avenues, but my ultimate thing is I want to help restore, which I love the second chapter of your book, by the way. I love to help restore hope, identity, and purpose to people. And I know we're going to talk about hope a little bit today too, but that's what I do. I speak around the country and and love to help people. And I'll fly to North Carolina, Michigan, Texas, Florida, wherever people need me.
Well, I know when my husband, we met in recovery, actually, we met at Alcoholics Anonymous. And then a few years later, he ended up with having 5 surgeries back to back. So for 6 months was back on his drug of choice, which was pain medication. And it just got out of control. I didn't even know it. I mean, it wasn't like he was falling down and out buying stuff, but he realized, he finally confessed he had a problem, and he wanted to go to a Christian treatment center in California, but I couldn't get him to actually commit to do it. So I actually called an interventionist from the show Intervention to go to Pacific Hills Treatment Center. And Jeff actually lives in Rice Lake up here. So I called Jeff, and I'm like, this is nuts to have to do this. You're in recovery, get your butt on the plane. And he went. And so it's really important. And I think yesterday, the first day, I kind of wrote my download. It's a free download. I'll talk about it in a little while, but it's on the process. When I first came, that admitting part is so hard to admit you got a problem, especially a professional, a counselor, a teacher, or a Christian. Here you are, a pastor or a leader in the church, and now you don't want to admit that you've got alcohol or drug or porn addiction or whatever it might be, because we're supposed to be good Christians, or professionals. Yeah. It's especially hard for those of us, I think, in the leadership roles or recovery, because we're expected, more is expected of us. So it's harder to admit. The second day is, oh my gosh, now that I've admitted, kind of like the 12 steps, now what? So you go and help people to kind of break that denial in the intervention when they're like, no, I'm not doing this. I don't have a problem. You help them break that denial and then get them to that next step. So what is that next step to give them? Because if they don't have hope, they're not going to walk out the door and get into a program, right? How do you do that, Robin? For you, what did you do?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And here's the one thing, you talked about hiring an interventionist, right? And there's so many in the country, and there's so many really good ones, and there's a lot of not good ones. That's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, Linda, was to educate people, because I like to highlight other interventionists. So there's 10 other interventionists that I actually interviewed in the book. So it's all of our strategies. Right. And it's all our strategy on how do we help people, which have uniqueness to them, because every situation is unique. There's not like a cookie cutter way to get someone into treatment.
Yeah.
There are key ingredients to that, but we're dealing with chaos and everything. So even in the book, I write down a lot of questions like, these are objections families have as to, well, if I do this, then she will do that.
Yeah.
And if I do this, if I confront my loved one, they might leave and never talk to me again. If I kick them out of the house, they might die on the streets.
Yeah.
Well, they're dying in your basement anyway. Yes. It's the thing of, so it's all these objections and trying to help educate people on, it's hard to take that first step, because guess what? If your loved one gets help, then now you have to change your behaviors, because you're not going to be following them around everywhere and be like, oh my gosh, well, they're not drunk anymore. What do I do?
Yeah, right.
It's like the beautiful picture above your shoulder there of the sea, right? The sea crashing against the seawall, and the seawall has a purpose, right? The purpose of the seawall is to make sure that everything above that seawall stays up there. It doesn't crash down. And if the seawall erodes, just completely goes away, then your foundation is completely gone, and now you've got a lighthouse in the ocean, right?
Right.
So we're all about creating that strong foundation so your seawall stays up. I just came up with that, by the way, looking at your picture.
That is beautiful. I love it. I love it. Yes. And as we've seen all these floods, and that's what the Bible says too, that we need to be built on the rock. And that's the other thing I love about you, Robin. I'm the same way. I'm a counselor. And whether or not someone is an atheist or whether or not they're a Christian, God has given us the ability to be able to work with whoever. So we don't have to be, oh, she's a Christian, so we don't want her because we don't believe in that. But on the other hand, God uses us to do whatever. So I think, especially for those Christians that are watching, they need to know that people like us are out there and available to use the word of God to lead them and to kind of talk their language, I guess, and hopefully speak to their heart in that way. So that's awesome.
Sure.
I love that, Rob. I really love that. Now, if they haven't seen your story at all from last time, give us a little bit about how that miracle thing that happened with you and how God really, with the weight room, that'll never leave my mind, that story.
Oh yeah, it's powerful. Well, we are talking about hope today, right? And at the end of my drinking, I was at a hopeless state for sure. I mean, it was 15 years of just, from 14 to 29, that was just insert alcohol. And I didn't have anything tragic that got me on the pathway of drinking. I just saw it looked exciting. It looked fun, tried it, liked it. And 15 years, just insert crazy story, right? And even in like my new book, The 101 Reasons to Quit Getting Drunk During the Holidays, that was, it's like all about like the reasons why we drank and how do we get away from that. And so for me, it was just fun for a while. And then it became a necessity for a while. And then it was just like, this is just what I do. Like I was a business guy. So I had a good job. I wasn't living on the streets. I had a bunch of girlfriends. It was just kind of one of those things. And then I got married to a good alcoholic. That didn't turn out so well for a variety of reasons. And then I was just like, I was single again. And that's when it really kind of took off because I tried to quit drinking on my own through going to a recovery program. And I just wasn't ready. I heard what I wanted to hear when I went to that first meeting, that life sucked being sober. It wasn't any fun. And everyone was smoking cigarettes. And I was like, oh, this is recovery, right? I found out later after I got sober, the meeting I went to, I just talked about, was not even a smoking meeting at all. It was like the best meeting in Indiana, Fort Wayne, but I heard what I wanted to hear. And I had to get to the point of my exit off the addiction freeway, right? I had to get to that point myself. And I'll tell you the story of what happened that night, but it's important to hear. You hear a lot of people, and you probably do too, Linda, that, well, we're just going to wait till they hit bottom. Well, bottom can be death for a lot of people, right? So my whole thing about what I do with my intervention work is I want to bring the bottom up to your loved one, right? There was no one trying to bring the bottom up to me. I still had close family, my good relationship with my parents, a lot of colleagues, friends. Again, I was like I hate the term functioning alcoholic, which is an oxymoron in my opinion. But here I was this night hanging out in the bar, and I'd been dealing with suicide ideation quite a bit because I didn't like who Rob had become. I was ashamed at things I was doing. I just did not like that part of me. And I was a little nervous to enter into the world of, sobriety because it wouldn't be any fun. But here I am thinking about killing myself, passed out, throwing up, going places I shouldn't be going, doing things I shouldn't be doing. So that wasn't really that fun. That was just my lifestyle. And so here we are on June 7th, 2001. I'm hanging out in a bar in Fort Wayne, Indiana, right? And it was music, it was girls, it was dancing. And then all of a sudden, the bar got completely dead silent. And I audibly hear the words, "You're done."
You're done.
And then it got really loud again. Yeah, that was it. You're done. No idea what that meant. It just was, "You're done." And I was like, okay. Hey, Sean, I think I got to go home. I'm finally done drinking. See you, talk to you later. And he's like, all right, we'll see you at the bar tomorrow night. And I'm like, no, I don't really think you will. And I'm driving home, and I literally felt like a different guy, transformed guy, but then I was still the drunk guy. And I'm driving home, and I get to my 1-bedroom apartment. And the next thing I knew, I'd put 350 pounds on my barbell and laid down on my workout bench. And I picked up that barbell, Linda, and just out of desperation, I mean, I was completely desperate, lost, and hated who I was. And I picked up that barbell, unhinged my elbows, and just dropped it. And in the midst of me unhinging my elbows, what I believe happened is God intervened in that moment through my dog. My dog, Jake, came over to me and started nudging my knee with his head and just started doing that puppy dog tilt thing, right? And I looked at him, and meanwhile the barbell's here, and I looked at him, and I was like, holy crap, who's going to feed you tomorrow morning?
Wow.
And that was my first thought, was who's going to feed my dog in the morning?
Wow.
And I just believe that was God coming in saying, hey, not today. And I'm still holding the barbell. Correction, God's holding the barbell, because I could not even carry that much weight or lift it. And he puts that barbell back on the rack. And it was like, I can hear the metal hit metal every time I tell that, but something shifted in me that night.
Wow.
It shifted to the point where I finally slept in peace for the first time, woke up the next morning. My aunt took me to an AA meeting in the back of a bar in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And there was hope in that room, what we're talking about today. These people had hope. They were happy, they were joyous, and they were free. And they were a community of people that were loving on each other in the back of a bar, saying, hey, life's great sober. And I'm like, okay, barbell, life's great sober. I'm going to take that. And I just jumped in head over heels, and I was like, all about recovery. And if AA is not your thing, there's Celebrate Recovery, there's Dharma, there's so many recovery pathways that were not there 21 years ago.
Right.
And so I almost feel like it'd be easier to get sober now than back then.
Yeah, amazing. It's so true that God will meet us where we are at, and he will speak to us in a way we can understand if we ask, if we're open. And that hope is the first stage. But I actually love your new book that came out, because, and the reason why I'm doing this time of year is we can stop one person from ruining this holiday, from having their kids remember them drunk or not at an event or passed out during the holiday or not getting picked up or killing somebody, being a drunk driver, or having a breakup because they're off with somebody else, addiction, or even the food thing, waking up on January 1st going, oh no, I got another 10 pounds to lose now, because you eat like a pig through the whole holiday and feel sick. It's just something that this is a time. Don't wait till January 1st to do this. There's 101 reasons, or a lot more than that. But Rob wrote down 101 reasons why not to get drunk or high or anything else during the holidays. There's a lot of that practical stuff. And it's possible, isn't it, Rob? We've got hope that it's possible. What's the key thing that you think is what is going to do it for us? How are we going to get there? How'd you get there?
Well, I feel like in our addictions, we carry a lot of shame and guilt. Right. So I call it, we got to remove the shame boulder in front of our mouth and be able to talk about what we're struggling with. Because if we don't talk about it, we can't heal from it. And so I'm a big proponent of counseling, coaching, and community for people in recovery that are starting this journey of how do you really enter into a room of recovery and find this community of people that are going to love you in the present, like right now, today. That I think that's the most important thing, is community in the beginning. Then we got to bring in the counseling aspect to understand, why did we do the things we did before? And you'll hear people say, well, I just did it because it's genetic and that's why I do it. I'm like, well, guess what? There's a lot of people that are in families that are down the line that didn't get drunk like you did. So yeah, it's part genetic, it's part environmental. And people say, well, but this, I don't understand why. I said, the bottom line is you're struggling with drinking too much. So maybe you don't have an addiction, but do you have a dependency on alcohol? Sure. Okay, dependency. Let's start there. But if you get around people and community, that's the most important thing. I think that's where you find the hope.
Exactly. I knew you were going to say that. And as a counselor, it clearly comes. My husband always says there's a guy that he listens to, first thought wrong. And as addicts, the first thing we go to when we're stressed, upset, angry, hungry, angry, lonely, and tired is to fix that. Whatever thing we run to fix that. So that's the first thing, is getting our thinking under control, because what we think causes our feelings, and what we feel causes our behaviors. So we got to change that pattern. And listening to you, listening to people, I'm a counselor, you're a coach. We are here to help. And that's the whole point of the 7-Day Sobriety Challenge. I really want to let people know, Rob, what you have to offer. I'm going to go back to share my screen now and show them what you are doing. And I think it's awesome and I love it. But here's what you're going to get. If people haven't signed up for this yet, and it doesn't matter when you're signing up, if it's 5 years down the line and I'm dead, hopefully this website will still be there. You can still listen to Rob and all our other speakers. But right now we got about 15 speakers that you're going to be listening to. There's 9 from last year. There's probably going to be 30 on there by the end of this challenge. You'll get my ebook that I just wrote on how to stay sober for 7 days or more. You'll get to attend these live talks that we have. You'll get a special link. And then I just wrote a book, and Rob, I know, has dropped his price considerably too. For 99 cents, I'm doing my book, my Speak to Me, God, I'm Listening. But this is the download that you'll get for free. It's my 7 keys to sobriety that saved my life. And Rob and I are talking about this today. We're talking about the enough is enough. You need your 101 reasons. And we'll be talking about giving up tomorrow and taking one day at a time. And if we don't want to, mess to success, keep it going in the rest of your life resources. So there's just a ton of stuff that we can do. I wrote this book. This is my journey of sobriety. Speak to Me, God, I'm Listening. Rob did that. He prayed. God answered him in a powerful way. I prayed. God spoke to me through picking up a microphone and giving me a shock when I said, do I sing in this bar band? And I said, was that you, God? The light bulb blew up and I'm like, okay, we're done. And that was the end of my drinking. So if you want to hear God speak, you can download that for 99 cents through this event. Here again is Rob's 2 things. On the back of his, we'll come back and look at his screen. On his screen, he's got his other, but if you go to his main page, liftedfromtherut.com, you're going to be able to see Rob's freebie that he is offering to download. And you're also going to be able to set up a free session with Rob. And I just want to quick mention tomorrow, Castaneda Fitzpatrick, who I've also met through some of these coaching programs. She started her journey. She was 5 years old when she was sexually assaulted and spent 31 years being trafficked, addicted to drugs, and now just got her degree in human services, is a recovery coach as well, helping people who have been traumatized and stuck in trafficking. So we got some phenomenal speakers, but if you look at Rob's thing behind him there, freerecoverybook.com, right, Rob? That's where, and tell us about that book that you're offering.
Yeah, so that's a floating download. So I say that because it'll change throughout the year. So if you go to freerecoverybook.com, it's going to change throughout the year. But right now, it's a sample of my addiction intervention book that's up there right now. But it's going to change throughout the year, and it's just a way to say, hey, thanks for tuning in. And then through that, they'll get some emails and they can set up a free call with me if they want. Just say, hey, what's going on in your life? How can I help you and serve you? And then if they need help professionally and they need me to hire me as their interventionist or coach, I'll talk to them about what that looks like too.
That's fantastic, Rob. I so appreciate you coming today and being here for us. And I will upload this to YouTube and share that with your people and my people. And thank everyone for coming today and supporting us and joining us. And this is amazing. I'm really grateful to have you here. So God bless, Rob. Keep up the good work. And we're going to save people from doing the junk dumb stuff that we did. And that's exciting. That's what we're on this earth for. Merry Christmas to you, Rob. This is what it's about. Jesus came so we could be doing this. And what better thing to do on the day of his birth than to be doing this? So God bless you. Take care.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too.
Okay. Oops.